Hey everyone, it's Brett in Japan, in Tokyo. I've just thought of a good idea for a video. Sam's out going to Lawson, so I figured I'd take this time to be loud and boisterous and go ahead and give my opinions of how living in Japan has affected my learning of Japanese. I know many of you are wondering what it's like to be living in a foreign country and how it will affect your knowledge of their language. So I figured I'd break some of it down for you. Let's state some of the facts. I've been living in Japan for around 6 months. I'll admit I'm not studying Japanese very actively anymore. By that I mean I only do a few minutes a day on my phone with some apps, and occasionally I'll study a book with actual grammar and things. But most of my learning is active learning from living here. I took the JLPT N4 December 6th. I don't get my results until the end of January, so I can't tell you much about that, but I don't want to jinx it, so I think I failed. And of course, as many of you know, in fact, if you've seen my other videos, you have to know, I work at an eikaiwa. If you're quick-witted, you might have guessed which one. And what that means is there's very little Japanese that I speak at work on a daily basis. Little to none, actually. But it does provide good listening practice from my Japanese coworkers, so that's always a plus. So let's get right into it. How do I feel about my Japanese since moving to Japan? Well, the things I think have actually skyrocketed or been pretty good since I've moved here are 3 things. My reading has done tremendous. I can read signs, a lot more kanji and all that, much more than I could have back home or if I had continued studying my normal way. My listening, I get listening practice every day at a native speed. And while I don't catch everything, I'm not saying, oh, I'm a master at listening to Japanese. No, I'm actually pretty terrible compared to some people, even some of my friends who like to constantly remind me, looking at you. And I guess my overall comprehension, and I know that goes with listening and reading, but it's like those two tied together, and also the ability to understand at least Hiroshima dialect at this point. Kind of understanding which part is the dialect and which part is the actual Japanese. But what I don't think I've improved on at all, or made very little progress, is my speaking. And you'll see that in some other videos, especially now that I have this GoPro. This is the first video with a GoPro. I know it's not exciting, it's just a still shot, but still, first video. I hope the audio turns out okay, because if it doesn't turn out okay, I might just sit in a corner and cry and never do YouTube or anything again. But with that said, there are different ways I can get speaking practice, and let's go into that. So what helps me? Let's go over what helps in general. What helped was you definitely have to know the basics of a language and some key phrases before moving. Even if you're just visiting a country, I would say the basics are a necessity. You're missing out on half the experience if you don't speak anything in a language. I'm not just talking about Japan, I'm talking about any country in the world. But if you really are against learning a language, if you absolutely can't stand it, or if you're one of those people that thinks you can't learn a language, which I would say absolutely you can, don't give me that bullshit. But if you're absolutely against it, I would say take the time to at least get some basic phrases, even if you're just visiting. But if you are moving to a country like I did, they're a necessity. It's ridiculous to think otherwise. Sure, there's bubbles of foreigners who speak your language, and you can have a social circle like that, but what about outside of friendships? You're gonna have everyday needs like bills, shopping, groceries, eating out, doctor's visits, all sorts of things that require some sort of skill, unless you want to pay a translator or bribe a native friend with beer every single time, and that can get expensive, trust me, trust some of my friends. Also, to help, I would say keep a calm head. There will be stressful and embarrassing situations and times when you're speaking a language. You'll probably feel like an idiot most times. I would say 9 times out of 10. But that's okay. Mistakes are part of the process. In fact, the only way to learn is to make mistakes. Take every mispronunciation, forgotten word, or slow speech moment and use them to build up more confidence for when you speak. I used to be terrified to make mistakes in a foreign language, still am a little bit, but now I can try. I can throw myself out there, try to speak. The worst that can happen is they don't understand me the first time. I adjust my language a little bit, maybe try pronouncing things a little better, and hopefully we'll get somewhere. Unless I'm speaking complete garbage, and that usually happens when I have to look up a phrase. So, with that in mind, always try to use the language every time you can. My job kind of restricts me from speaking at the job. I don't really speak in the workplace. Maybe 95% of my workplace is English, and that other 5 is to other native staff. But outside of work, I try to speak Japanese every time I go shopping, to the bar, or even to the park, anywhere. I only speak English at work and with my friends, and even some of my friends I'll speak Japanese with, albeit horrible Japanese, and they'll constantly criticize me about it, looking at you again. Anyways, so what do I think? I think if you think moving to a country will give you this incredible ability to understand a language instantly, you're wrong. It's horrible thinking, and you should probably never move away from your home country. But if you think it will help, I definitely agree. While active practice and using the many opportunities that you'll have to use the language, you'll learn much more rapidly than you could if you lived in your home country. Now, I'm not saying learning a language in your home country is shit. Clearly, you need to learn the basics there, and you can actually learn a fair amount in your home country. It just helps if you go to the country that speaks your language. Now, that's a lot easier said than done. I'll leave it up to you to find the finances, the job, the housing, figure out how to do taxes and all that adult stuff. You're grown up, come on. But that's my thoughts on how living in Japan has affected my Japanese learning. I hope that gives a little bit of insight. Until next time, I'll see you. Hope this first GoPro video turned out alright. And stay beautiful.